Regret is the ghost that lingers when choices have already hardened into consequences. It creeps into the quiet hours of the night, whispering, "What if I had chosen differently? What if I had spoken when I stayed silent? What if I had been braver, wiser, kinder?" For many, these questions never leave. They become the weight that bends the back of old age, the unhealed wound that festers long after opportunities are gone. The Stoics, however, did not believe that regret was inevitable. They believed it was the result of a life lived without vigilance, without reflection, without courage. To live with fewer regrets, one must live awake, attentive to what matters most before it slips beyond our reach. The tragedy of regret lies in its timing. It comes only after the moment has passed, when there is no longer any possibility of change. A friendship neglected until it withers. A love betrayed and lost forever. A talent ignored until the hands grow too shaky to begin. In hindsight, the lesson is always clear, but clarity without time to act is punishment, not blessing. The Stoics therefore urged us to bring that clarity into the present, to treat each decision as though we were already looking back from the end of life. Marcus Aurelius, writing to himself in his Meditations, said, "Do not act as if you had 10,000 years to live. Death hangs over you. While you live, while it is in your power, be good." These words are not merely philosophy, they are medicine against regret. Regret often hides itself beneath the language of excuses. We tell ourselves that tomorrow we will act, tomorrow we will change, tomorrow we will make amends. But tomorrow is the most dangerous word in the vocabulary of regret. Seneca warned against this delay when he wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." To waste time is to accumulate regrets, grain by grain, until the pile becomes unbearable. A Stoic life, then, is a vigilant life, a refusal to let time slip unnoticed into the abyss. The first step in preventing regret is to recognize its nature. Regret does not arise because life is cruel. It arises because we choose poorly or fail to choose at all. The man who regrets never speaking his mind chose comfort over honesty. The woman who regrets neglecting her children chose distraction over presence. The person who regrets years spent in meaningless work chose security over purpose. These are not accidents of fate, they are errors of judgment. The Stoics remind us that judgment is precisely where our freedom lies. We cannot control the outcome of every choice, but we can control whether we act according to reason, virtue, and clarity. And so, the question becomes, what are the crucial lessons that must guide us now, before the years close in and regret claims its toll? Stoicism offers us 5. They are not complicated, but they are demanding. They require honesty with ourselves, courage in the face of fear, and discipline in the face of comfort. They require us to live now as we would wish we had lived later. The first lesson is to guard your time as your most precious possession. Time is the currency of life, yet it is spent more carelessly than gold. People guard their money with vigilance, yet squander hours as though they were infinite. Seneca likened this to a man who allows strangers to walk into his house and steal his belongings while he protests at the smallest loss of coin. Regret is born from time wasted, years given to trivialities, moments sacrificed to distractions, opportunities drowned in procrastination. The Stoic asks us to measure each day not by its pleasures, but by whether it was lived with intention. The second lesson is to master your desires, lest they master you. Much regret is born from chasing what glitters and discovering, too late, that it was worthless. The pursuit of wealth, fame, or indulgence often ends in disillusionment. The Stoics were blunt. External goods are never truly good. To waste a life in their pursuit is to wake up one day and realize you have built your house upon sand. The true good is virtue, the state of soul that no fate can rob. When we forget this, we accumulate regrets that money cannot erase. The third lesson is to speak and act with integrity, even when it costs us. Few things sting as deeply as the memory of silence when we should have spoken, or of cowardice when we should have been brave. Comfort tempts us to avoid conflict, to take the easy road, to hide behind false smiles. But in the end, these choices rot the soul. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." To live by this rule is to live without the bitter taste of betrayal, of ourselves or others. The fourth lesson is to cultivate gratitude for the present rather than hunger for what is absent. Many regrets come not from mistakes of action, but from blindness to blessings already in hand. The child who longs for toys grows up to regret not cherishing the parents who gave them. The adult who chases status regrets not savoring the quiet joys of ordinary days. Gratitude is not sentimentality, it is armor against regret. For the man who gives thanks for what he has will not lament so bitterly what he loses. And the fifth lesson, the crown of them all, is to remember death. Memento Mori, remember you must die, is not morbid but liberating. For the man who knows he will die, lives with urgency. He does not postpone, he does not waste, he does not sleepwalk through days. He chooses carefully, speaks truthfully, loves deeply, acts bravely. The memory of mortality sharpens life into focus. It strips away illusions and leaves only what matters. Regret cannot survive in a life lived daily as if it might end tomorrow. In the chapters that follow, we will examine these lessons one by one. Each is a shield against regret, forged in the fire of Stoic wisdom. Each demands more than comfort, more than ease, but each, if lived, promises the freedom of a life that will not haunt itself in memory. For regret is not fate, it is a failure to live by reason and virtue. And while we still breathe, we have the power to choose differently. Let us begin, then, with the first lesson, to guard our time as though it were our soul. For in a sense, it is. Among all the treasures men seek, time is the one they most readily squander. Gold is guarded, possessions are locked away, reputations are defended with fierce energy. Yet hours are handed over like trifles, as though tomorrow were guaranteed, as though years could be summoned back once spent. The Stoics saw this with brutal clarity. Every regret we carry in old age is, at its root, a regret about time. Time wasted, time ignored, time traded for what was worthless. If you wish to prevent regret, you must first learn to guard your time as if it were your soul, for in truth, it is your soul made visible in the world. Seneca, in his letter on the shortness of life, strikes us like a hammer. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. These words are more accusation than observation. Life, he argued, is long enough if it is fully lived. But squandered, it feels short indeed. And when the end comes, such men weep, not because death has arrived, but because they never truly lived. Regret thrives in the soil of wasted time. Imagine a man who has worked tirelessly for decades, chasing promotions, obsessing over wealth, neglecting his family in the name of providing. At 60, he looks around and finds himself a stranger in his own home. His children are grown, his marriage is hollow, his health is brittle. He regrets not because he lacked years, but because he traded them for goals that turned to dust in his hands. This is the story of countless lives. They do not end with tragedy, but with the slow realization that what was urgent was never truly important. The Stoic remedy is vigilance. Marcus Aurelius, ruler of the known world, still reminded himself daily, do not waste what remains of your life in idle speculation, unless it is about some common good. Do not allow your mind to wander aimlessly. If even an emperor, surrounded by duties and distractions, needed to police his hours, how much more do we? His warning is sharper than it appears. Aimless living is the enemy of the soul. Time spent without intention is time given to regret. To guard time is not simply to be efficient. Efficiency is the modern counterfeit of vigilance. We fill our calendars, optimize our routines, automate our chores, and still end the day empty. For progress is not merely measured by what we add to our lives, but by the strength we retain when those additions vanish. Because we confuse being busy with living well, the Stoics would scoff at this obsession with productivity. They measure time not by activity, but by virtue. A single hour spent in contemplation, in honest conversation, in the pursuit of wisdom was richer than a lifetime consumed in trivial busyness. Regret often comes from realizing too late that we worked tirelessly on the wrong things. This lesson is visible everywhere. Consider the man who scrolls endlessly through devices, feeding on distraction. He tells himself he's relaxing, but hours pass and nothing remains. Or the woman who avoids silence by filling every space with noise, never allowing herself to reflect on the direction of her life. Years slip away, and when she finally looks back, she cannot account for them. Comfort makes this wasting easy. Convenience makes it constant. And regret, when it comes, is merciless. Time once lost is lost forever. The Stoics therefore practiced deliberate withdrawal. Seneca advised periods of retreat from the noise of the world, not to abandon duties, but to remind oneself of what is essential. Epictetus urged his students to measure each day by whether they had advanced in virtue. Marcus Aurelius carved out moments, even amidst war, to write reflections to himself. These were not luxuries, they were acts of survival. They ensured that when the final hour arrived, these men would not be haunted by years squandered on nothing. Guarding time also demands courage, for much of our wasted time is stolen, not by distractions, but by fear of displeasing others. We say yes when we mean no. We attend gatherings that drain us. We linger in conversations that serve neither truth nor love. We waste hours, days, even years in the pursuit of approval. And when life draws to its close, the regret burns. We live not our own lives, but the lives others demanded of us. Epictetus warned, if you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. To guard your time, you must be willing to disappoint others. The price of honesty in the present is far less than the price of regret in the future. There is also the subtle theft of procrastination. Tomorrow, we say, I will begin. Tomorrow, I will call my friend, pursue my craft, mend my health, speak the truth. Tomorrow is the great thief of time, for it convinces us that delay is harmless. But tomorrow is never guaranteed. Seneca again, while we are postponing, life speeds by. The cemetery is full of men and women who plan to begin tomorrow. Regret is their epitaph. The Stoic practice then is simple but radical. Live each day as though it were complete. Not half-lived, waiting for the future, but full, as though it might be the last. Marcus Aurelius, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. To live this way is to armor oneself against regret. For if you speak truth today, you will not regret silence tomorrow. If you love fully today, you will not regret neglect tomorrow. If you pursue virtue today, you will not regret wasted years tomorrow. Guarding time does not mean rejecting pleasure or withdrawing from the world entirely. It means choosing deliberately. It means asking, is this worthy of my life? For every hour is a trade. When you give it to a task, a person, a pursuit, you give away a portion of your soul. If the trade is unworthy, regret waits at the end of the bargain. But if the trade is just, meaningful, aligned with virtue, then even in hardship, you will not regret it. This is the first and most crucial life lesson. Treat time as sacred. Not money, not possessions, not reputation. These can be regained if lost. Time cannot. Every moment wasted is a wound that cannot be healed. Every moment guarded is a treasure that grows in value. The man who lives this way will not look back with bitterness. He will look back with gratitude, for he did not merely pass through time, he inhabited it. To prevent regret, then, is not to wish for more years, but to use wisely the years already given. The length of life is beyond us, the depth of life is within us, and the depth of life is carved, hour by hour, by the choices we make with our time. Among the most common sources of regret is the recognition that we spent our lives chasing what was never worth the chase. Men pursue wealth, and on their deathbeds confess that it brought them no peace. Women sacrifice health, integrity, or love for beauty, status, or approval, only to discover that these vanish like smoke. Whole lives are built around ambitions that seemed urgent in the moment, but reveal themselves to be hollow in hindsight. Nothing burns more bitterly than realizing that what you devoted your energy to was never truly good. This is why the Stoics insisted that we master our desires, because if we do not, they will master us. Epictetus was blunt. Freedom is not achieved by satisfying desire, but by eliminating it. To modern ears, this sounds harsh, even impossible. Are we not human because we desire? Is not desire the fuel of progress, creation, and art? The Stoics would not deny that desire has its place, but they would warn that uncontrolled desire is a tyrant and its tyranny leads to regret. For the man who lives, ruled by appetite, is never satisfied. He reaches for pleasure, and once obtained, it loses its sweetness. He reaches for wealth, and once gained, he fears its loss. He reaches for reputation, and once secured, he discovers how fragile and fickle it is. Desire, unchecked, is a trap without end. The hidden danger of desire is that it feels urgent in the moment, but trivial in hindsight. A man abandons his principles for profit, telling himself it is necessary. Years later, he cannot look at his reflection without shame. A woman compromises her integrity for approval, telling herself it is harmless. Years later, she mourns the person she might have been. Regret grows out of these compromises, choices where desire ruled reason. The Stoics understood that the mind must govern the appetites, or else the appetites will enslave the mind. Seneca warned, "It is not the man who has little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." This paradox exposes the futility of living for desire. Regret often takes the form of realizing that we had enough, but we could not see it. We chased what was unnecessary, and in the chase, we neglected what was essential. Families neglected for careers, health destroyed for indulgence, virtue abandoned for power, comfort sought at the expense of resilience. These regrets arise not from lack, but from blindness, from failing to recognize sufficiency when it was already in our hands. Modern life amplifies this blindness. Everywhere, we are taught to crave more possessions, more achievements, more experiences. Advertisements whisper that happiness is one purchase away. Social media convinces us that everyone else is living better, richer, more thrilling lives. The culture of comparison stokes endless desire, and endless desire breeds endless regret. For even if we achieve what we crave, we find the satisfaction short-lived. And when we fail, the regret is sharper still. We not only lack the thing, but we realize we wasted years in its pursuit. The Stoic answer is not to extinguish all longing, but to reorder it. To distinguish between what is in our power and what is not, between what is truly good and what only appears so. Epictetus taught that desires aimed at externals, wealth, reputation, pleasure, are dangerous because they depend on fortune. The wise man desires only what is within his control, his own judgments, his own choices, his own character. Such desires cannot be frustrated. The man who desires to act with courage can always do so, regardless of circumstance. The woman who desires to live justly can always choose justice, even if the world opposes her. These desires do not lead to regret, for they are aligned with virtue, not vanity. Consider the man who who disciplines his desires. He enjoys wealth when it comes, but he is not enslaved by it. He tastes pleasure, but he does not hunger for it obsessively. He receives praise, but he does not depend on it. If these things vanish, he remains whole. He does not look back in bitterness, because he did not build his life upon sand. His joy came not from possessing externals, but from mastering himself. This is the freedom Epictetus spoke of, a freedom born not of indulgence, but of restraint. Contrast him with the man who never learns this lesson. He spends his youth chasing pleasure, his middle years chasing wealth, his old age chasing reputation. Each pursuit leaves him hollow, yet he cannot stop. At the end, he looks back and sees that he was never present, never content, never free. His regrets are countless, not because life denied him, but because he was enslaved to desires that could never be satisfied. Desire also blinds us to mortality. We live as though tomorrow is endless, always reaching for the next indulgence. But when death approaches, we realize too late that we spent our lives in pursuit of shadows. Seneca wrote, "While wasting our time hesitating and procrastinating, life goes on. To desire endlessly is to miss life as it passes." Regret comes when we awaken too late to this truth. How then do we master desire? The Stoics practiced voluntary hardship. Seneca fasted, not because he lacked food, but to prove to himself he could live without it. Epictetus urged his students to rehearse deprivation so that they would not fear it. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily of death so that he would not be seduced by trivial cravings. These practices stripped desire of its power. They reminded the mind that it is sovereign, that no external thing can enslave it unless it consents. For us, the practice might be simpler but no less powerful. To delay gratification, to embrace silence instead of constant stimulation, to live for a day without indulgence, to refuse comparison with others. These are small acts of rebellion against the tyranny of desire. Each act prevents regret before it takes root. For regret grows not only from great betrayals, but from the daily accumulation of compromises to appetite. The deepest lesson is this: regret comes not from lacking what we desired, but from desiring the wrong things. If we desire virtue, we will never regret pursuing it, no matter the cost. If we desire wisdom, courage, temperance, and justice, we will never regret the effort, even if we fail often. But if we desire wealth, reputation, or pleasure above all, regret is guaranteed, because these things betray us in the end. Therefore, to prevent regret, master your desires before they master you. Do not live as a slave to cravings that will vanish. Live instead as a ruler of yourself, free from chains. When the final hour comes, you will not look back with bitterness, but with peace, for you did not waste your life chasing shadows, but spent it seeking what truly endures. If time is the canvas of life, and desire is the paint that can either clarify or distort it, then integrity is the frame that gives the picture its permanence. Without integrity, everything else collapses. A man may live long and achieve much, but if his words are lies and his deeds betray his principles, regret will haunt him like a shadow he cannot outrun. Of all the regrets confessed at the end of life, one of the deepest is this: I was not true to myself. I lived in pretense, in cowardice, in compromise. The Stoics, perhaps more than any other school, tied freedom to integrity. Epictetus declared, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid," because integrity often demands that we appear strange to others, that we resist the pressures of conformity. To speak the truth may cost us reputation. To act justly may cost us comfort, but to abandon truth and justice is to cost ourselves, and that is the price that leads inevitably to regret. Consider the man who remains silent when injustice unfolds before him. At the time, silence feels safe. Words might bring conflict, punishment, or ridicule. So he says nothing. Years later, the memory gnaws at him. He regrets not the silence itself, but the cowardice it revealed. Or think of the woman who lies to preserve an image, who hides her failures and exaggerates her successes. In the moment, the deception feels small, almost harmless. But when the lies accumulate, she becomes a stranger to herself. Regret, when it comes, is not only about what she did, it is about what she became. The Stoics were ruthless in their pursuit of truth, even when it hurt. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." These words sound simple, but they cut to the core of human weakness. How often do we betray ourselves in small ways, agreeing when we disagree, flattering when we despise, promising what we do not intend to deliver? Each act feels minor, yet each one chisels away at the foundation of integrity. Over years, the structure collapses, and regret stands where character should have been. Regret tied to integrity is unique because it cannot be erased by success. A man may gain wealth, honor, even empire by sacrificing integrity, but he cannot escape the gnawing truth that he has betrayed himself. Seneca, observing the Roman elite, saw men who controlled provinces yet trembled before their own consciences. "What does it matter how much is laid away in a man's safe," he wrote, "or how many acres he tills, or how many clients he drags in his train, if he is in poverty of soul?" That poverty, recognized too late, is the deepest regret of all. But integrity is not only about truth to others, it is about truth to oneself. Many live lives that look admirable from the outside but are hollow within. They pursue careers they despise, relationships they do not believe in, habits that corrode them, all because they fear honesty. They tell themselves stories. "This is just temporary. I have no choice. Everyone else expects this of me." And so they live not their own lives, but a mask. The Stoics would call this slavery, the worst kind, for it enslaves the soul while leaving the body free. Why do we sacrifice integrity? Because it is uncomfortable, because lies are easier than truth, flattery easier than honesty, cowardice easier than courage. Comfort tempts us to compromise, to settle, to pretend. And yet, the very comfort we gain becomes tomorrow's regret. The short-term safety of silence becomes the long-term torment of "what if I had spoken?" The short-term gain of dishonesty becomes the lifelong burden of a fractured self. To prevent regret, the Stoic insists on daily practice. Speak truth, even in small matters, so that truth becomes your habit. Do the right thing, even when it costs you, so that justice becomes your nature. Epictetus urged his students to test themselves constantly. In every act, observe yourself and ask, "How will this affect my soul?" If the act corrodes the soul, if it betrays who you are, then no comfort it provides is worth the future regret it guarantees. Integrity also demands courage in relationships. Many regrets arise from words never spoken, apologies withheld, love unexpressed, truth concealed. The Stoics remind us that death comes suddenly, and once it comes, the chance to speak is gone forever. How many men and women lie awake, tormented by the memory of a parent they never thanked, a friend they never reconciled with, a partner they never honored fully. These regrets are preventable, but they require courage now, the courage to speak honestly, to live transparently, to act with justice even when misunderstood. Marcus Aurelius, surrounded by intrigue and flattery, warned himself, "Be straight, not straightened." The phrase is simple but profound. Do not merely appear honest when pressed, but be honest by nature. Do not bend yourself into shapes to please others. Live upright, regardless of their opinion. The man who follows this command will face hardship, ridicule, even loneliness. But he will not face the regret of having lived a lie. The cost of integrity is high in the moment, but the cost of abandoning it is higher in the end. Every betrayal of truth plants the seed of regret. Every act of courage plants the seed of peace. The Stoic therefore chooses courage now, so that he may rest untroubled later. When we imagine ourselves at the end of life, looking back, it is not the comforts we enjoyed that matter, but the truths we told, the principles we kept, the justice we practiced. No one says with their last breath, "I am glad I lied. I am glad I betrayed myself." But many, too many, whisper the opposite. The Stoic seeks to silence those whispers before they come. To live and speak with integrity, then, is the third crucial lesson to prevent future regrets. It is not easy, and it will not make you popular, but it will make you free. For the man who speaks truth and acts justly, no matter the cost, may face hardship, but he will not face the torment of having lived falsely. And when his final hour comes, he will look back not with bitterness, but with peace, knowing that though he stumbled often, he never betrayed his soul. Now some exciting news. Our channel now offers a members club. By joining it, you'll unlock exclusive benefits, deeper content dives, and personal insights. Join us on this journey, and let's build a meaningful life together. And I also humbly ask you to leave a comment, as it helps my channel immensely. If you do not know what to comment, just write "better every day" so I know you reached this far. And don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Also, I've linked some books on Stoicism that helped me become the man I am today and will also help you achieve a Stoic mindset. Among all the regrets that haunt human beings, one of the most piercing is not about what we did wrong, but about what we failed to notice while it was still within our hands. We regret not the absence of blessings, but our blindness to them. A parent gone, a friendship neglected, a moment ignored. Suddenly, once it vanishes, its value glows with unbearable clarity. The Stoics warned us of this blindness and offered gratitude as the cure. To live in gratitude is to live awake. To live without it is to guarantee regret. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself in his meditations that life is brief, fragile, and fleeting. He wrote, "Do not act as if you were going to live 10,000 years. Death hangs over you. While you live, while it is in your power, be good." But hidden within this command is also an invitation. See the present as the miracle it is. A warm morning, a shared meal, a moment of honest conversation. These are not trivialities, but treasures. Gratitude makes us aware of them. Without gratitude, we look past them, always straining for what is absent, until time carries them away and regret takes their place. Gratitude, in the Stoic sense, is not sentimental. It is not the vague optimism of pretending everything is perfect. It is the discipline of seeing clearly, seeing that every breath is a gift, that every relationship is finite, that every opportunity is fleeting. It is awareness sharpened by mortality. Seneca urged his readers to count each day as a separate life, because he knew that if we see each day as complete in itself, we will cherish it rather than treat it as disposable. Gratitude prevents regret by teaching us that today is not preparation for life, it is life. Regret often comes from failing to practice this awareness. Think of the father who spends years chasing career success, promising himself that he will spend time with his children later. Later arrives, and the children are grown, no longer waiting for him. He looks back and regrets not because life denied him family, but because he failed to cherish what he had. Or consider the woman who yearns endlessly for more wealth, more beauty, more status. In the pursuit of what was absent, she forgets to savor what was present: health, friendship, simple joys. Regret strikes when these vanish, and she realizes she was rich all along, but lived as though she were poor. The Stoics practice gratitude not only for blessings, but also for hardships. This shocks modern ears, but their logic was profound. Hardship, too, is a gift, for it trains resilience, sharpens character, reveals our strength. Marcus Aurelius thanked the gods for giving him teachers who corrected him, for granting him adversities that tested him, for surrounding him with people who reminded him of virtue by their flaws. Gratitude for hardship prevents the regret of wasted suffering. Instead of asking, "Why me?" the Stoic asks, "What can I learn?" This transforms pain from a source of bitterness into a source of wisdom. Gratitude also shields us from envy, one of the most corrosive seeds of regret. When we spend our lives comparing ourselves to others, we neglect what is ours. We regret later, not because we lacked, but because we were blind. Epictetus advised, "Do not spoil what you have by desiring what you have not." To envy is to blind yourself to your blessings. Gratitude clears the vision, allowing us to see that sufficiency, not abundance, is the true measure of wealth. Modern life makes gratitude difficult because it thrives on dissatisfaction. Entire industries profit from convincing us that what we have is not enough, that we need the newest device, the better house, the next achievement. Social media parades curated lives, stoking the hunger for what others display. The result is not joy, but endless regret. Regret that we were not richer, not more admired, not more accomplished. Gratitude disrupts this cycle. It says, "What I have is enough. What I have is already good. If more comes, I will welcome it, but I will not mourn without it." This mindset is not passivity, it is liberation. How, then, do we practice gratitude in a Stoic way? First, by daily reflection. Seneca urged his students to review each day at night. What did I receive? What did I fail to notice? What can I be thankful for? Second, by deliberate attention. Marcus trained himself to marvel at simple things: the rising sun, the kindness of a stranger, the beauty of nature. These are not small gifts, they are the substance of life. Third, by memento mori, the remembrance of death. To remember that all can vanish sharpens appreciation for what is now. We kiss our loved ones more deeply when we remember we may not kiss them tomorrow. Gratitude prevents regret because it dissolves the illusion that happiness lies elsewhere. Regret thrives on the thought, "If only I had more, then I would be content." Gratitude replies, "I already have enough. Let me live it fully now." Regret feeds on blindness to blessings. Gratitude restores sight. When life ends, few people regret not having purchased more things. They regret not having noticed the things they had. They regret not savoring meals, not holding loved ones more tightly, not speaking words of thanks when the moment allowed. The Stoics would say that gratitude is not optional. It is the discipline that makes life luminous while it is still here. To cultivate gratitude is therefore the fourth crucial lesson to prevent future regrets. It is a call to awaken, to live not in longing but in recognition. For when the end comes, the man who lived in gratitude will not mourn what slipped away. He will smile, knowing he cherished it while it was his. If there is a single lesson that cuts to the root of all regret, it is this: you will die. These three words, so plain and unadorned, carry a weight that terrifies and liberates in equal measure. To the one who flees from them, they are a shadow that haunts every thought, a silent terror that paralyzes. But to the one who faces them squarely, who remembers daily that each breath could be the last, they are a guide, a teacher sharper than any philosopher, more honest than any friend. The Stoics called this memento mori. Remember that you must die. Death, they knew, is the great equalizer. Wealth, reputation, beauty, power, all crumble before it. No comfort can shield us, no fortress can resist it. Yet while most people live as though they had endless years, the Stoics trained themselves to see death as ever present, always near. "You love yourself, but you do not love your nature," he wrote, "because in that awareness lies the antidote to regret. A man who knows he may die tomorrow does not waste today. A woman who remembers mortality does not postpone truth, love, or justice." Regret thrives on the illusion of infinite time. Memento mori destroys that illusion. Marcus Aurelius, writing to himself while surrounded by war and plague, reminded, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." These words are not an invitation to despair, but to urgency. If we truly absorbed them, how many of our regrets would vanish before they formed? Would we remain silent when we should speak? Would we hoard time for trivialities? Would we delay reconciliation or postpone the pursuit of wisdom? Or would we, at last, live awake, spending our hours on what matters most? The avoidance of death is the seedbed of regret. We live as though we are immortal, telling ourselves there will always be another chance, another day to apologize, another year to love, another decade to change. But the cemetery is full of men and women who plan to begin tomorrow. Seneca, stern as ever, wrote, "We are dying every day. The part of life we have already lived has been taken from death. Each day we waste is not neutral, it is carved away, irretrievable. To remember death is to remember that the clock is always running, and that postponement is not safety, but loss." The Stoics did not merely think of death, they practiced its remembrance deliberately. Epictetus advised his students, when embracing a loved one, to whisper to themselves, "He may not be here tomorrow." To us, this may sound cruel, but it is in fact the highest form of love. For to remember death is to cherish life. The man who believes his friend will live forever may neglect him, but the man who knows that death may part them at any time will love him more fully, more presently, with fewer regrets later. Gratitude, as we saw, is sharpened by mortality. The modern world hides death. We push it into hospitals, funeral homes, quiet corners of society where it cannot disturb our illusions of permanence. We flood ourselves with distractions so we do not have to think about it. Yet the result is not peace, but blindness. And blindness breeds regret. For when death finally arrives, as it must, it strikes not only with grief, but with the weight of all we refuse to see. The Stoics invite us to look directly, so that death, when it comes, finds us ready, not surprised. But here is the paradox. Remembering death is not morbid, but liberating. To live as though death were far away is to waste life. To live as though death were near is to savor it. Marcus Aurelius captured this paradox beautifully. Think of yourself as dead. You have lived your life. Now take what's left and live it properly. If you imagine yourself already at the end, the remaining hours are pure gift. They become charged with urgency, with clarity. Regret cannot thrive in such soil. Consider how many regrets are born from delay. The man who never pursued his calling. The woman who never said, "I love you." The parent who never reconciled with a child. Each thought there would be more time. Each discovered too late that there was not. Memento Mori is the discipline that prevents this illusion. It whispers, "Do not wait. Speak now." For tomorrow is not promised. This remembrance also dissolves fear. Much regret comes not only from what we failed to do, but from what we were too afraid to try. We shrink from risks, from honesty, from the pursuit of our higher callings, because we fear failure. But death puts all failures into perspective. What does it matter if you stumble, if you are mocked, if you lose wealth or status? Death will take them anyway. To remember death is to shrink the false fears that paralyze us, leaving only the true fear, wasting life itself. The Stoic life, then, is not grim but joyful, for it is a life freed from the illusion of endless tomorrows. It is a life awake to the brevity of time and the brilliance of each moment. The man who remembers death each morning will not regret his evenings. The woman who contemplates mortality daily will not regret her years. Their choices will not be perfect, but they will be intentional. And regret, above all, is the mark of choices left unmade. Thus, the fifth and final crucial lesson to prevent regret is to live under the shadow of mortality, not in despair, but in vigilance. To practice Memento Mori is to carry death as a teacher at your side, reminding you that life is not to be hoarded, but to be spent well. For the man who lives this way, death will come as a closing of a book already read with care, not as the tearing away of pages never opened. And so, when your last hour arrives, You will not say, "If only I had lived." You will say, "I lived." And regret will find no foothold. Excelente, vamos então para a parte 7th de 5. Crucial life lessons to prevent future regrets. Aquí vamos a entrelazar as 5 leyes estoicas, mostrando cómo ellas se sustentan mutuamente y forman un mapa de vida sin arrepentimientos. It is the inevitable result of living unexamined, distracted, enslaved to comfort, and blind to what is essential. But when we look at the 5 Stoic lessons together, a deeper harmony emerges. Each lesson alone is powerful, but together they form a whole greater than the sum of its parts, a shield against regret in every season of life. The first lesson, guard your time, is the foundation. Without vigilance over time, nothing else is possible. You cannot master desires, practice integrity, cultivate gratitude, or remember death if you squander your hours in triviality. Time is the stage on which all virtues must act. To waste it is to lock the door of life before entering. The Stoics remind us that our greatest wealth is not measured in possessions, but in moments well lived. But guarding time without the second lesson, mastering desires, is not enough. For even if you protect your hours, if they are consumed by cravings for wealth, reputation, or indulgence, you will still awaken to regret. Time well guarded must be spent on what matters, and desire must be disciplined to see what truly matters. Epictetus urged us to align our will with what is within our control, to crave only virtue, for then our hours would be filled not with vanity but with substance. The third lesson, integrity in speech and action, gives direction. Time guarded and desire mastered may still be wasted if we do not live truthfully. A life filled with cleverness, strategy, and even achievement becomes hollow without honesty. Integrity ensures that our days are not only efficient, not only disciplined, but meaningful. Seneca warned that men who seem to succeed outwardly yet betray themselves inwardly end their lives in despair. To prevent regret, we must live transparently, choosing courage over comfort, truth over pretense. The fourth lesson, gratitude for the present, transforms our vision. Even if we guard our time, discipline our desires, and live with integrity, regret may still creep in if we fail to cherish what is here. Gratitude is the practice of seeing. It sharpens our awareness so that we do not overlook blessings until they are gone. Marcus Aurelius thanked the gods for each day, each teacher, each hardship. This gratitude stripped away envy and blindness. Without it, even a virtuous life may feel empty, and emptiness breeds regret. Finally, the fifth lesson, remembering death, crowns them all. Memento Mori is the lens that keeps every other lesson sharp. To guard time, you must remember that it ends. To master desires, you must remember that all external things perish. To live with integrity, you must remember that reputation dies with you, but virtue endures. To cultivate gratitude, you must remember that each moment may be the last. Death, paradoxically, is the teacher of life. Without its reminder, the other lessons fade into abstraction. With it, they burn with urgency. Together, these 5 lessons form a circle of protection. Each strengthens the others. To live them is not to eliminate suffering, nor to guarantee success, but to free yourself from the torment of looking back in bitterness. For regret is not born from hardship itself, but from the knowledge that we wasted time, pursued vanity, betrayed integrity, neglected blessings, or postponed living as though death were far away. The Stoics teach us to break this cycle while life is still in our hands. Imagine a man who embraces all 5 lessons. He guards his time and refuses to waste it on trivialities. He disciplines his desires and pursues virtue rather than vanity. He speaks truth and acts justly even when it costs him. He cultivates gratitude for each day, each relationship, each trial, and he remembers death daily so that none of these practices drift into complacency. Such a man, when his final hour comes, will not tremble with the thought of wasted years. He may grieve what he leaves behind, but he will not regret how he lived. Contrast him with the man who rejects these lessons. He squanders his time on distraction, always believing tomorrow is endless. He chases desires that betray him, and when he achieves them, he is left empty. He compromises integrity for comfort, lies to others and to himself, and becomes a stranger to his own soul. He neglects gratitude, always longing for more, blind to what he already has, and he avoids the thought of death, only to be crushed by it when it arrives. His life is a series of postponements, his end a flood of regrets. The Stoic path is not easy, but it is clear. Each day offers us the choice between vigilance and negligence, discipline and indulgence, truth and pretense, gratitude and blindness, mortality and illusion. Each day is a chance to prevent regret before it hardens into memory. The 5 lessons are not merely teachings, they are practices. They must be lived, rehearsed, and embodied. For regret is not fate. It is a failure of attention, courage, and discipline. And while we still breathe, we can choose differently. The Stoics invite us to live so that when death comes, whether today or decades hence, we meet it not with bitterness, but with peace. By now, the pattern is clear. Regret does not arrive by accident. It is the inevitable result of living unexamined, distracted, enslaved to comfort, and blind to what is essential. But when we look at the 5 Stoic lessons together, a deeper harmony emerges. Each lesson alone is powerful, but together they form a whole greater than the sum of its parts, a shield against regret in every season of life. The first lesson, guard your time, is the foundation. Without vigilance over time, nothing else is possible. You cannot master desires, practice integrity, cultivate gratitude, or remember death if you squander your hours in triviality. Time is the stage on which all virtues must act. To waste it is to lock the door of life before entering. The Stoics remind us that our greatest wealth is not measured in possessions, but in moments well lived. But guarding time without the second lesson, mastering desires, is not enough. For even if you protect your hours, if they are consumed by cravings for wealth, reputation, or indulgence, you will still awaken to regret. Time well guarded must be spent on what matters, and desire must be disciplined to see what truly matters. Epictetus urged us to align our will with what is within our control, to crave only virtue, for then our hours would be filled not with vanity, but with substance. The third lesson, integrity in speech and action, gives direction. Time guarded and desire mastered may still be wasted if we do not live truthfully. A life filled with cleverness, strategy, and even achievement becomes hollow without honesty. Integrity ensures that our days are not only efficient, not only disciplined, but meaningful. Seneca warned that men who seem to succeed outwardly yet betray themselves inwardly end their lives in despair. To prevent regret, we must live transparently, choosing courage over comfort, truth over pretense. The fourth lesson, gratitude for the present, transforms our vision. Even if we guard our time, discipline our desires, and live with integrity, regret may still creep in if we fail to cherish what is here. Gratitude is the practice of seeing. It sharpens our awareness so that we do not overlook blessings until they are gone. Marcus Aurelius thanked the gods for each day, each teacher, each hardship. This gratitude stripped away envy and blindness. Without it, even a virtuous life may feel empty, and emptiness breeds regret. Finally, the fifth lesson, remembering death, crowns them all. Memento Mori is the lens that keeps every other lesson sharp. To guard time, you must remember that it ends. To master desires, you must remember that all external things perish. To live with integrity, you must remember that reputation dies with you, but virtue endures. To cultivate gratitude, you must remember that each moment may be the last. Death, paradoxically, is the teacher of life. Without its reminder, the other lessons fade into abstraction. With it, they burn with urgency. Together, these 5 lessons form a circle of protection. Each strengthens the others. To live them is not to eliminate suffering, nor to guarantee success, but to free yourself from the torment of looking back in bitterness. For regret is not born from hardship itself, but from the knowledge that we wasted time, pursued vanity, betrayed integrity, neglected blessings, or postponed living as though death were far away. The Stoics teach us to break this cycle while life is still in our hands. Imagine a man who embraces all 5 lessons. He guards his time and refuses to waste it on trivialities. He disciplines his desires and pursues virtue rather than vanity. He speaks truth and acts justly, even when it costs him. He cultivates gratitude for each day, each relationship, each trial. And he remembers death daily so that none of these practices drift into complacency. Such a man, when his final hour comes, will not tremble with the thought of wasted years. He may grieve what he leaves behind, but he will not regret how he lived. Contrast him with the man who rejects these lessons. He squanders his time on distraction, always believing tomorrow is endless. He chases desires that betray him, and when he achieves them, he is left empty. He compromises integrity for comfort, lies to others and to himself, and becomes a stranger to his own soul. He neglects gratitude, always longing for more, blind to what he already has. And he avoids the thought of death, only to be crushed by it when it arrives. His life is a series of postponements, his end a flood of regrets. The Stoic path is not easy, but it is clear. Each day offers us the choice between vigilance and negligence, discipline and indulgence, truth and pretense, gratitude and blindness, mortality and illusion. Each day is a chance to prevent regret before it hardens into memory. The 5 lessons are not merely teachings, they are practices. They must be lived, rehearsed, and embodied. For regret is not fate. It is a failure of attention, courage, and discipline. And while we still breathe, we can choose differently. The Stoics invite us to live so that when death comes, whether today or decades hence, we meet it not with bitterness, but with peace. At the heart of every regret lies a single truth: I could have lived differently. The hours wasted, the desires chased, the truths unsaid, the blessings ignored, the tomorrows assumed. All these crystallize into a final sorrow: I could have lived more wisely, more honestly, more bravely. The Stoics did not deny this sorrow, but they offered us a way to prevent it. Their wisdom is not a promise of ease, but of clarity. To live by their 5 lessons is to walk through life awake, so that when death arrives, we can say not, if only, but I lived. The first lesson, to guard your time, reminds us that life is not measured in years, but in moments, and that each moment must be chosen carefully. The second, to master desires, teaches that freedom is not found in indulgence, but in restraint, in aligning our longings with what truly endures. The third, to speak and act with integrity, ensures that our lives are not only disciplined, but true, that we do not betray our own souls for the comfort of others' approval. The fourth, to cultivate gratitude, sharpens our eyes to the blessings already at hand, so that we do not awaken one day to mourn their loss. And the fifth, to remember death, crowns them all with urgency, stripping away the illusion of infinite tomorrows and compelling us to live now. Together, these lessons form not merely advice, but armor. They shield us from the paralysis of regret, from the torment of wasted years. They are not abstractions, but practices, habits to be lived daily. To reflect each evening on how time was spent. To resist the cravings that enslave. To speak truth when silence would be easier. To notice the blessings hidden in ordinary hours. To remind ourselves each morning that death may come today. These are not grand gestures, but steady disciplines, and through them a life takes shape that will not collapse under the weight of memory. Regret feeds on delay. It grows strongest in those who always intended to begin tomorrow. The Stoics insist that tomorrow is a myth. While wasting our time hesitating and procrastinating, Seneca warns, life goes on. The cemetery is filled with those who plan to change later. The Stoic therefore chooses now, not because he is reckless, but because he knows later may never arrive. To live without regret is not to live without mistakes. All men stumble, all women falter, all lives bear scars. But mistakes do not become regrets if they are met with reflection, correction, and renewed courage. Regret arises not from failure, but from negligence, from refusing to learn, to change, to act when we could have. The Stoic embraces failure as teacher, so that even missteps become steps on the path of wisdom. Imagine then your final hour. Imagine yourself lying at the edge of life, looking back. What would you wish you had done? Whom would you wish you had loved more deeply? What truths would you wish you had spoken? What moments would you wish you had savored? These questions are not for later, they are for now. The answers are your map. To live by them now is to silence tomorrow's regrets. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live." This is the Stoic challenge. Life is not measured by its length, but by its depth. Not by what we accumulated, but by what we became. To live without regret is to live with vigilance, courage, gratitude, and truth. It is to live as though death were near, because it is. The choice is ours. We can drift, numbed by comfort, distracted by desire, lulled by the illusion of endless tomorrows. Or we can awaken, sharpened by mortality, disciplined by reflection, guided by virtue. One path leads to bitterness at the end. The other leads to peace, time, desire, integrity, gratitude, death. They are not complicated. They are not new, but they are everything. Practice them, and when the final hour comes, you will not tremble with the weight of what if. You will meet death with steady eyes and a calm heart, knowing you lived as a Stoic, awake, disciplined, free. And perhaps, as you close your eyes, your last thought will not be of regret, but of gratitude. Gratitude that you saw clearly, that you lived with intention, that you left nothing undone that virtue demanded. And in that moment, regret, that restless ghost, will find no place to haunt you. Now, if any part of this message has been helpful to you, leave us your like and comment, helping the algorithm recommend it to someone who needs it at this time. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss new videos. And if you look through the videos we've already uploaded, you're sure to find something to take with you. Have a good day.